What if one of humanity's most sensitive instruments, something designed to literally hear the whispers of the cosmos, was being held back by a fundamental paradox? For decades, that's exactly the problem engineers at LIGO faced. The very act of making their detector quiet was actually creating its own noise. It's a frustrating problem that seemed unsolvable. But now, a new AI has finally broken that stalemate. Let's get into how they did it. First, to really get a handle on this challenge, you have to appreciate the insane scale we're talking about. LIGO is designed to detect changes in distance as small as 10 to the minus 19 meters. That is 1/10,000th the width of a single proton. I mean, just think about that. Measuring something that small means your instrument has to be impossibly, almost unimaginably still. And that brings us right to the heart of the paradox. To hear those faint ripples in space-time from colliding black holes, LIGO has to be the absolute quietest place on Earth. But the very systems that were designed to make it quiet, the ones fighting off vibrations from distant earthquakes and ocean waves, well, they were introducing their own noise, creating this frustrating barrier that stood in the way of discovery. So, how does this thing even work? Basically, you have these incredibly stable lasers beamed down two 4-kilometer-long arms. They bounce off these perfectly suspended mirrors at the end. Now, when a gravitational wave from some cosmic event passes by, it stretches one arm while squeezing the other by that tiny, tiny amount. The lasers fall out of sync, and that little shift in their pattern, that's the signal. That's the sound of the universe. To explain this paradox, engineers use this just brilliant metaphor. They call it the waterbed effect. And it's a classic dilemma in control systems. I mean, picture it. You push down on a waterbed with your hands. Sure, the water flattens out right where you press, but it just bulges up somewhere else, right? That is exactly what was happening inside LIGO's control systems. So here's that trade-off in action. The control systems were fantastic at getting rid of low-frequency noise, that constant rumble from the Earth itself. But in doing that, they created a new, higher-frequency noise, a kind of controller hiss, right in this super important band between 10 and 30 hertz. The solution was, literally, creating its own problem. And look, this wasn't just some minor engineering annoyance. This had a real, tangible scientific cost. This self-generated noise created a deaf spot. It was masking signals from some of the most sought-after events in the universe, like the mergers of these missing link intermediate mass black holes, which are thought to be a key to understanding how galaxies actually evolve. So, how do you solve a paradox that's baked right into the foundations of classical engineering? Well, a team from Google, Caltech, and the Gran Sasso Science Institute came up with a pretty radical idea. What if you could teach an AI to play that waterbed effect game, but with superhuman finesse? They called their solution deep loop shaping, or DLS for short. And this isn't just a case of AI replacing an old system. No, it's a true synthesis. It takes the time-tested principles of classical engineering, a technique called loop shaping, and fuses it with the incredible adaptive power of deep reinforcement learning. It's the best of both worlds. So, how did they even train it? Well, the AI learned its new skill by basically playing a super sophisticated game. It would propose an adjustment to the mirrors. That action was then tested in dozens of hyper-realistic LIGO simulations. If the change reduced the overall noise, boom, it got a reward. If it made things worse, it got penalized. You repeat that process millions and millions of times, and eventually, the AI discovers this incredibly complex strategy that no human engineer could have ever designed. Okay, but training an AI in a perfect simulation is one thing. The real test, the absolute moment of truth, was deploying this AI, which had only ever seen data, onto the live, exquisitely sensitive, multi-billion-dollar instrument. There is just zero room for error. So, the stage was set for the ultimate test, a 1-hour proof-of-concept run. The team connected their DLS system to the actual hardware at the LIGO detector down in Livingston, Louisiana, to see if the AI's complex strategy would actually hold up in the messy, noisy real world. The result was, well, it was staggering. The AI-driven system was able to quiet the motion of the mirrors by a factor of 30 to 100 times better than the traditional methods. This wasn't just a small improvement, it was a complete and total breakthrough. It effectively eliminated that controller hiss that had been plaguing the observatory for decades. This table really just lays out the whole paradigm shift. The traditional system, using classical filters, was fundamentally stuck with that waterbed effect. But DLS, using deep reinforcement learning, learned to overcome that very limitation. The performance in that critical 10 to 30 hertz band went from being limited by noise to having its noise floor just dramatically reduced. It's a night and day difference. Okay, so the engineering feat is obviously incredible. But what does this actually mean for astronomy? What's the scientific payoff? Well, it means we can finally tune in to the universe's bass notes. By making the detector so much more sensitive, LIGO can now hear fainter signals from much, much further away. And because the volume of space you can listen to increases with the cube of the distance, this could lead to the detection of hundreds of additional gravitational wave events every single year. But here's the thing. It isn't just about quantity. It's about the quality of the science. It's about what we can see now. By opening up that previously obscured frequency window, scientists can hunt for entirely new kinds of cosmic events. They can finally go searching for those missing link black holes. They can study the slow early spiral of merging objects, and they can test fundamental physics with just unprecedented detail. Caltech physicist Rana Adhikari really summarized the impact perfectly. He said, studying the universe using gravity instead of light is like listening instead of looking. This work allows us to tune in to the base. And that's what this is. That powerful, low-frequency cosmic rumble is finally within our hearing range. And the implications of this success story, they go so far beyond just astronomy. What this team did provides a powerful new blueprint for solving some of the toughest engineering challenges out there, across many, many different fields. I mean, think about it. The core problem, suppressing vibrations in a really complex system, that problem is everywhere. This same AI approach could be used to stabilize sensitive satellite optics in aerospace, to enable more precise movements in robotics, or even to create active damping systems to make huge buildings and bridges safer during earthquakes. Ultimately, what they've created, this simulate, train, validate pipeline, is now a proven strategy. We can fully expect to see this kind of approach used in the design of future observatories, like the Einstein telescope, allowing scientists to build instruments that are far more ambitious and sensitive than could ever be controlled by classical methods alone. Which really leaves us with this final massive question. By deeply integrating AI, not just as a tool for data analysis, but as an active partner in the physical experiment itself, this team broke a barrier that was thought to be fundamental. So it really makes you wonder, if AI can solve this decades-old paradox, what other seemingly impossible limits in science are next to fall?